In our next steps, what we're going to do is take a look at how to delete a file once we've uploaded it. So we're going to add a little UI tool to our page of thumbnails, which is a link that says delete this file, and then we'll add another link that allows us to delete all of the files. Let's go ahead and cancel out our debugging session here and free up some space on our screen. I'm going to remove the debug stopping point, and I'm going to jump back to our steps folder in our assets module. So what we want to do is open up the 7th step, which is called unmanaged delete file. Go ahead and copy the entire code and paste it over the code that's currently in your assets.module file and save it. The first thing that we've done here is we've added some code to our page that we just created in the last step, which was the page of thumbnails. And we've added a link here to delete, and we're pointing to a new page in our hook menu, assets/unmanaged/delete. And we're passing a query as well that has 2 parameters. The first is destination, and this is something that we're going to use in our script to redirect the user back to the thumbnail page after they've deleted an image. And we're passing it current path. Now we could just use the path to the thumbnail page, but this is a good demonstration of how we can use this same feature on multiple pages without having to know exactly what pages to support. So we can just take the current path and pass it as a destination and pull that from the query string when we decide what to do after the file is deleted. And then we're also passing it a second parameter, which is the file, and we're passing it the file URI. Let's go ahead and scroll up to the top and take a look at the item that we added in our assets menu function. We've added a page for assets/unmanaged/delete. We've given it a title and a description and a page callback, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this function next. We've given it access callback true, which means that anybody can access this page. Now, if this was a real production site, then we wouldn't want to allow this. We would want to make sure that we have the proper permissions being checked before we allow somebody to delete a file arbitrarily. So just a quick disclaimer here that this is a simple example and it should be fleshed out for production. And we're giving it the type of menu callback, which means that there's not going to be a menu item associated with this page. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at assets unmanaged delete callback, which is the function that will be called when we want to delete our file. I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom. And here's our function here. Our first step is to check to make sure that the file that's being asked to be deleted belongs in our assets/unmanaged folder. So we don't want somebody to pass any arbitrary file that could potentially delete something that's pretty important to us. So we're going to make sure that they're narrowed down to this one particular directory. So we're using a function called string position, or strpos. It's a PHP function. And we're checking the query parameter file that we passed into this page, which is the URI of our file. And we're checking it for the base text of public://assets/unmanaged/, which means that this file has to belong inside of the assets and unmanaged folder inside of our public directory. And we're checking it against the position of the string, so it should be 0. We don't want to check for it inside the middle of the string. We want to make sure that it's at the very beginning, which is a string position of 0. If it's not a match, we want to make sure to set an error message that tells the user why they can't do it, or at least that they can't delete this file. And next, because we're going to be doing a couple of validations before we send the user back to the thumbnail page, we're creating a Boolean error variable here, which we can use throughout. Next, we want to check to make sure that the file actually exists before we try to delete it. And if not, we want to throw an error. And if everything is good and this passes, then we want to go ahead and unlink the file. And we're doing this with a function called Drupal unlink. Unlink, if you haven't worked directly with files before, means to delete the file. We're basically freeing up the memory that's associated with that file. And we're passing it the URI to the path where we want to delete. Then we're setting a message letting the user know that the file has been deleted. And finally, we're going to take that destination parameter that we passed in through the query and run it through a function called Drupal goto, which will simply redirect the user to another page. Okay, let's go ahead and see this in action. Make sure that your file is saved and jump back to the browser. And let's go ahead and clear our caches. I'm going to go ahead and stop the debugging session we started earlier. So I'm going to the Home button and flush all caches. This will register our delete page. Now we have our delete link here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and see what happens. All right. We got our message, the file has been deleted. And if we jump back to our file directory, I'm going to scroll down here to our Files, Assets, Unmanaged folder, and it's empty. So our file was deleted just like we wanted it to be. In the next step, what we're going to do is create a tool that allows us to recursively delete all of the files inside of a directory.